Hello and welcome back. If you've made it to this part in the tutorial, I think you are probably serious about actually creating something. So we need to get serious about saving our work and making sure we don't lose anything. And to do that, we're going to use Git. So if you've already set up your repository by cloning and you're familiar with Git, you can skip ahead. This part will be just basic. But otherwise, if you've been following this tutorial series exactly, you will have installed or created this repository by downloading a zip file and unzipping it. And to check that, you can run this command, git status, not static, git status, and you'll see fatal, not a Git repository. Okay, so to fix this, we're going to initialize a new repository. We do that by running the command git init. That will initialize the empty repository, and you'll see a whole bunch of stuff changed here in the background on VS Code. I'll show you there's some interoperability between Git and VS Code that is kind of essential, in my opinion, for modding Ocarina of Time and just really any software project in general. I think Git is absolutely essential knowledge. Anyway, we've initialized the repository. Now we're going to run git checkout -b main. And that's going to put us on a new branch called main. Now, if we run a git status again, you're going to see all of these red things. These are currently untracked files. We want to track everything that we've done so far. So we're going to then run git add -A. And this will take a second. You'll see some warnings about line endings. You don't need to worry about that. But that's going to add every file in the repository that's meant to be tracked. And if we do another git status, you're going to see an insane number of all these new files that are added. And it'll all be green. That means Git is now aware of them. We can do git commit -m, and then in quotes, we'll say initial commit. And that will create a commit that stores this instance of all of these files. So now if I run git status again, on branch main, nothing to commit, working tree clean. Let's say I come in here to the make file and I add a new line. Now you'll see in VS Code, it's recognizing this line 7 didn't exist before. And likewise, if I check it out on the command line with git status, it will say that I've modified make file. And if I ever want to revert that, I can run a command git restore and then the name of the thing that I want to restore. And you'll see that's removed the change to the make file. So Git is extremely powerful for tracking your work and make sure you always have like a known working state and you don't run into a situation where you've kind of messed things up and you're not able to get back to where things worked before. So we'll be using this a little bit going forward. So I recommend maybe checking out a tutorial or reading up on Git a little bit if what we just covered was too confusing. Definitely a very powerful tool to have in your arsenal. All right, next we're going to talk about asset management. This is one of the trickier parts of modding. Because of the way the upstream Decomp project is set up, it's not super friendly for modifying vanilla assets. So I've got a helper script that I wrote, and I'm going to show you a system that I use that I think is really effective. I think it's like the easiest way to pick up and like least headache. This is certainly not the only way to do it. And this is kind of a little bit of a hack, but works extremely well for me. I use it in the Indigo project, and it works great for all of us that are working on the project as well. So to begin, the first thing we need to do is create a new directory. So mkdir, we're going to call this mod_assets. Now, if I look at the assets directory, this is going to have all of the stuff like, so what have we done? We've created 2 scenes and we've added a custom actor, the Pulse voice, all of those dependencies for like the meshes and the animations. Those fall into the assets folder. And this is a volatile folder. So if I was to run this command, make dist clean, this would delete almost everything in the assets folder, including our new stuff that we added. So we don't want that to happen. What we're going to do is essentially keep a mirror of the assets directory called mod assets that contains all of the files that we want to persist. And then during the build process, we're going to copy all of these mod assets into their correct place under the assets folder. And that will allow us to, one, only commit and track the assets that we care about without tracking every asset in the game, and to make organization a little bit easier. So to get started on that, I've got a gist, and I'll put a link to this in the description. This is a little script, install mod assets. I'm just going to grab this, copy all that. Well, actually, why don't I use, I'll click on the raw first, and then yeah, Control A, Control C. Pop back into here to VS Code, and let's make a new file, new text file, and I'll paste all that in, just like so. So this is going to be our Python script. And then we need to save this, Control S. We're going to save this as install mod assets.py. And because we set up Git, if we run git status, you'll see we've got a new script here, install mod assets.py. Now, what we need to do next is set up our make file, make some changes to the make file to actually run this script instead of, or before it does the other build processes. So this is the part that is a little bit hacky. So we're going to go into the make file, and down at the, if you do a Control F for all colon, you'll see this target. We're going to rename this all. We're going to rename it build, and we're going to create a new target for all. And remember, you need to use tabs in the make file. And inside this new target, we're going to run Python 3 install mod assets.py. Once we do that, then we're going to run make j and then $ parentheses and proc build. So this is kind of a recursive make call. So when we call make with no parameters, it's going to install our assets and then run this other target that we just made, or renamed rather, build in parallel. So if I jump back to the terminal here, you will see how that works. If I run make, I'll just cancel that, and so I can not get totally flooded with tests. You'll see all this output is from the script, and it's saying removing stale actor. It's because the first time I ran it, it doesn't have any reference point yet, so it thinks everything is stale. So it runs all that, and then it does the compilation step. So I'll let that continue. We'll just run make. Cool. So that finished, but it didn't really do anything because if we look in mod assets, there's nothing in it. It didn't have to copy anything. So it's effectively just the same as like running a script that does nothing and then doing our build process. Okay. Now I mentioned this dist clean command and how anything that's in the assets directory you should consider as volatile. What we need to do is grab the things that we had previously put into the assets directory and put them into the mod assets. So that's going to be, we've made 2 scenes, and we've added 1 actor for the Polls voice. So we're going to set up directories for those guys. So we're going to do make dir, we're going to make a sub, this is a subdirectory under mod assets. So make dir mod assets, and then objects, and we want one for scenes. And the reason I've chosen those names, if I look in assets, you'll see here, we've got objects and scenes. So these are the ones that we want to grab. So now I can run the cp command, cp-r for recursive. This means it will copy a directory and everything under that directory. We're going to grab assets, assets, objects, object underscore polls underscore voice, and we're going to put that in mod assets objects, just like that. So that gets our polls voice folder and all of the assets underneath. And just to show you, mod assets objects, object polls voice, copied all of these guys. And let's do the same thing for our scenes. Where did I put those scenes? It was assets, scenes, tutorial scenes. Yes, let's grab that. Same thing, cp-r, assets, scenes, tutorial scenes, and going to put that into mod assets, scenes. Now we can check mod assets, scenes, there, tutorial scenes, and then it's got our 2 guys, my dungeon scene and my scene. So now, if we run make again, everything should basically be exactly the same as we had before. Let me scroll up here. You'll see, okay, copied 22 files from mod assets and removed 26 stale assets from this directory. No stale actors since last build. So what it copied over was our polls voice stuff and our scene stuff. And I'll talk more about this, why this remove stale assets thing is important later. But you'll see it did the build and everything looks good there. Now, just to prove to you that this is happening, I'm going to remove some stuff from the build directory. You don't need to do this. I'm going to remove build assets, actually arm-r, build assets objects, object polls voice. I'm going to remove that from assets as well, object polls voice. So I no longer have this polls voice object in either my build or in my assets directory. But if I run make, everything works and we still get a successful build. And if I now look in my assets objects directory, we have the polls voice again. So it created this. Let's also look at the get status. You'll see here. So notice that like when I'm adding and removing here, just to illustrate this point, I removed polls voice from assets. When I run get status, you'll see nothing under assets has changed. That's because assets isn't tracked by Git. And that's part of why I say everything under assets is volatile. It's because the build process and the extraction process, when it's yanking all that stuff out of the ROM, it's rebuilding that every time. So those are volatile things that can get deleted. And if you have any work that you want to hang on to, it is important that you don't put it under the assets folder. There are exceptions to that, but for now, just keep that as the rule. Don't put anything into assets that you want to keep or you're not okay with getting deleted. Now, let's go ahead and do a full dist clean. So I'm going to run, actually, let's commit all of our changes first. We're kind of happy with where we're at, right? So I'm going to do git add. Let's add the make file. Let's add our script, and then git add mod assets, add that directory. I run git status again. Here's all the new things that I'm now tracking, which contains the make file. And then because I just added that directory, it also will go ahead and add everything underneath that directory. There's our polls voice and our two scenes. Do git commit. And what should we have for our commit message? Setup mod assets. Sure. Git status on branch main, nothing to commit. Great. All right, so let's go ahead and run make dist clean. What make dist clean does is essentially revert your repository back to when it was first cloned. So if I now look in the assets folder, you'll see those other two directories, as well as a whole bunch more, are completely gone. And the only place that they're now kept is in our mod assets directory. So we need to basically go back to the first step we did, which was a setup. I'm going to run make j12 setup, and this is going to re-extract everything out of the ROM and create all those asset folders. I'll let that run. Okay, now that's finished. I can look under assets again. You'll see it's now created all of these folders. Again, these are freshly extracted, unmodified, straight out of the ROM. So another advantage of this method that I'm showing you how to use with this like install mod asset script is if you're ever working on something and you get into like a hopeless state where you've modified some assets and things aren't compiling and you can't figure out why, you can always do a make dist clean and a make setup, and that will get you back to pure vanilla. And you know that you can always go back to a safe, you can always recover the vanilla assets. And that's really helpful, especially when you're doing things that you don't all the way understand, like me, making changes that you don't know what's going to happen. It's really, really handy to have that fail safe to just, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, go back to how everything was at vanilla, and I'll start over from there. Now we can run our make command, and that's going to, again, run the script and then run the build. And I'll let that run. All right, now that finished. If you've been following this tutorial, you're going to get an error here. Let me run make build, which is our command directly, that new one that we added. That's effectively running like make without the parallel. So it's going to give me this specific error, men dl day entrance blah 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 undeclared. The reason this happened is because back in, I think it was video 2, we imported the Gerudo training ground scene, made some edits to it, and then re-exported it. And what happened was when we did that re-export, FAST64 actually changed this file for us. So we need to revert the FAST64 changes back to what they were in vanilla. So we'll jump back to VS Code. We're going to go into that file that's complaining about the error, which was z_scene table. So I can open that up with Control P, z scene table. And okay, mine was already right here. That's lucky, but if you're just coming in here, you'll see the this little like code preview on the right-hand side where the error is right here. So we need to get these bindings back to their non-FAST64 changed name. And to do that, we can grab it from the scene file. So I'm going to go up here into Assets, Scenes, Dungeons, Men. Scroll down. We want men scene.h. And right here at the bottom, you're going to see these G day entrance and day night. These are the names that we want. So I'm going to grab this, copy that, and paste that in for the day. Do the same here for night. Perfect. And another, like I said, another helpful thing about Git, you'll see this change and it can show you exactly what it was before and after you made your change. So with that fixed and the FAST64 change reverted, we should be able to run make again and have no issues. This will build and create our ROM for us. Fingers crossed. Fantastic. No errors. That's just what we like to see. All right. The last thing I want to leave off on this video is another helpful little shortcut. I'm kind of getting tired of every time building, opening up Project 64, clicking on the ROM. I want to go a little bit faster. So the way we're going to do that is in the make file. If you do a Control F for emulator and search a couple times, you're going to come here to this emulator definition. We are going to put the path to Project 64 with its Linux path. So I know what mine is. I'll show you what mine is. I've got it saved in another file. .emulator config. Copy this. Now this will change depending on where you installed your Project 64. Make sure you surround that in quotes. But mine is in Mount C. That's the C drive in Windows, program files, x86, Project 64 thread.o, and then project64.exe. And this may work with other emulators other than Project 64. I don't really use other ones, so I'm not sure, but feel free to try it. So your path might be different, but if you can find where that is, pop it in there to emulator. And then we're going to go down in the make file, do a Control F for run : and we'll find this target right here. And we're going to make a little change to this guy. So we're not going to be depending on the ROM anymore. We're just going to run this command, make just like before, $ parentheses, nproc build. We also want to grab this guy. Like that. Actually, what we could do is just run make. That's going to do the same thing. And then we're going to change, instead of this $ left arrow, we're going to change this to be $parens ROM. So now when we run this make target, it's going to recursively make, when we run make run, it's going to run make, which is going to come down and run make all. All is like the default. It's going to install our assets, and then it's going to build. That's going to build the ROM. I don't really need this to be copying it over to the desktop anymore because I'm just going to boot it up right away, but I'll leave that in there for now. And just to show you how this works, if I make run right here, it will automatically open up Project 64 and boot the ROM. Now, sometimes when you do this, it will just like sit at a black screen. That is one downside to this. I've noticed this happen. Only happens when I launch FAST64 this way. I'll run it another time, see if I can get it to happen, but probably not. I don't know what causes it, but sometimes it will just get stuck at a black screen. The way to fix that is just close Project 64, open it again, and that you'll get a little pop-up that says Project 64 exe currently running, terminate PID. Yes, kill that, and then do make run again, and that will fix it. It's like, I don't know, sometimes it doesn't know how to start up correctly when you run it from the command line. So that is one downside. It does seem to happen like once a day to me. It's interesting. Like, it'll happen at the start of the day, and then it'll never happen again for the whole rest of the day. But then tomorrow I come back and start working again, and it'll happen again. So no idea what's going on there. But that is one downside of doing it this way. But I think it's a small price to pay for the convenience of just being able to make a run and have it launch. Oops, actually I forgot a couple important things. First, we run git status. You'll see we've changed the make file. We changed our scene table. We want to commit those changes. We can just do a git add -a. We'll grab everything that's relevant, git status, these two files modified. Go ahead and commit those. We're going to say fixes for GTG scene. Sure, doesn't matter. This is just a helpful message. If I run git log, you'll see all of these little comments, and that can help you know where you are in your history. The other thing I forgot to mention, because we now have this mod assets set up, when you're exporting in Blender, like our dungeon we want to keep here in the scene exporter, I'm going to change this path. So instead of dumping that into assets, go up, we are going to dump that into mod assets scenes. Accept. So now your directory path should have the mod assets here. Otherwise, proceed as usual. Okay, that's going to be all for this video. I hope you check out the next one, because that one's going to be really fun. We're going to create a truly non-trivial mod. We're going to add a new item into the game. So hope you stick around for that one. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.